Welcome to another session. Today I am going to be speaking about what I have titled The Social Dance. The social dance, but also the importance of the social dance. Now, think about what I'm about to share in the next few sentences and tell me whether it's more the norm and something you generally see, or whether perhaps it's more of an anomaly and things you rarely see. When it comes to dating or intersexual dynamics, people seeking relationships of some significance, however they define such a significance, we usually start with a process of we, the individual, let me use myself as a good example. I'm looking for someone and I'm looking to date. I go out and I try to find someone for me based on my needs. Assuming the date progresses beyond the short term and the casualness and starts to move, and assuming I am still looking to move from dating to relationship, assuming I am starting to move towards a meaningful, significant relationship, I also am the person who carries out the vetting process. I get to critique, review, analyze either the opportunities available or the person that I have started to bond with. I make up my mind in discussion with the person that perhaps this is a union that should be moved beyond casual. And then assuming I want to get married, I propose or I ask the person to join me in some form of holy matrimony, and then we get married. For most people in the West, and for a majority, that is how things progress. The person who is in the relationship chooses the significant other, and the relationship blossoms from that point. I hope this is something that you relate to and something you see as the norm in the West. In other parts of the world, there is still some involvement, either of the family or the community, in that vetting process. In some cases, the man comes to the father if he's looking for a hand in marriage, and the father vets, and then he asks the father for permission to approach his daughter. That's one aspect, perhaps the extreme. In other ways, the woman receives an offer from a man, and she presents that offer to her parents, and her parents or the community invites said man for a vetting experience so they can get to meet him, and assuming she agrees and assuming the parents in the community give their blessing, things progress and they live happily ever after. Third example, a boy and a girl meet each other, they go past the introduction and communication conversation stage. There is some form of intimacy at whatever level that is acceptable to both parties. And then he proposes his love or professes his love, and she does likewise. They become a thing. They come to their parents and say, he's proposed to me, I have accepted, we are getting married, the celebrations begin. I'm not trying to critique any one of those archetypes of how relationships and unions develop. What I'd like to do in today's session, however, is explain what I call the social dance. The purpose of today's session is for women. The purpose is to enable women understand perhaps something that may not necessarily be an instinctive choice. More importantly, although I'm speaking to women, more importantly, I think the message applies to men. The reason being, as men, we make a terrible error with regards to relationships, despite the fact that we pay the highest penalty when things go wrong. We are supposed to be the ones who are gatekeeping and acting as gatekeepers to marriage, and the burden of responsibility falls back to us much higher than the woman. Therefore, in speaking to the woman, when you observe and date someone who does not exhibit all of these behaviors, you should be concerned. Secondly, as a man, as you listen, bless me, so if you find that for some reason you've skipped some steps, it's part of the social dance, take a pause, get back on track, and get it done properly. And let me not spend any more time talking in parables. Let me go straight to the core of what I want to share in today's session. When two people meet, normally, a boy and a girl, I'm using this as a reference, but the same thing applies to same-sex couples. Let me take a step back. In intersexual dynamics, there's a dating marketplace and there's a relationship marketplace. Sometimes these are not two separate places, and these are not also places from a geographical perspective. It just simply means that the intentions of one party or both parties are either short-term or long-term. For some people are confident, especially when they get to a certain age, 35 and over for men, and usually 27 and over for women, where they can actually skip the dating marketplace and go straight to relationships. Why? The manhood value of the man and the character value and the economic intrinsic value and all the other values he has have reached a level where he can simply date with intention and with a specific purpose to find a significant other. He knows his purpose, he knows his vision, he knows his plans, what he's looking for, and he knows the journey. What he is looking for, therefore, is someone to be a helpmeet to start that journey. So he doesn't have to try things. He simply knows what he wants. The selection process and the selection period is narrow. You can meet someone and in 2 weeks, you know whether the person is the right person for you. Within 6 months, you're married. Sometimes within less, you're married. Dating is a new concept. It's not something we did historically speaking. You met people and then you grew together. A woman goes through the same process. If she gets to the point where she is of age, she can skip the whole dating multiple people to find the right one. She knows what she wants, and therefore when a man approaches her, she says yes or no. The key point is not about love. That's a new modern concept, despite the fact that a woman has to love the man. Love is an emotion, the way we describe it with regards to relationships. Sometimes it lasts 2.5 years and sometimes 2 years. You get through the in-love phase and then it disappears. And suddenly you find out that you had nothing supporting or built, nothing underneath the structure of your foundation or your relationship. So it's important to bear that in mind. Dating marketplace, relationship marketplace. Dating for men is nothing more than the opportunity and the experience of having fun, short term. The objective, usually ejaculation, to put it very, very directly. It's not something that we do because we want to know what you think as a woman or your opinions about politics and psychology and anthropology, philosophy and life and geography and history. No. As we approach 18, we start to get to the point where all the chemical compounds in our body are working overtime. And we develop this urge that we have, which is instinctive, to release. We're looking for someone who can help us go through that process for it to be fun. We do all the dance to be able to be accepted because the women gatekeep in the dating marketplace, and in the relationship marketplace we do. In any case, in dating, we don't care so much about the social dance because it's a selfish pursuit. It's short term. It's not long term. You're making short term decisions to get short term objectives. In the relationship marketplace, you're making long term decisions because you intend to be with someone for a long term. Therefore, the responsibility to be more careful is less in the dating marketplace, with the exception of making sure you do not bring someone into the world by virtue of an error of conception. But in the relationship marketplace, the responsibility is much higher. The mistake men make is that we go through the process of dating as we do relationships. So a man would transition from just dating, sometimes the same girl, and he chooses her for a spouse or wife. And in that time frame, he has never taken the girl to his, you might say, inner circle, whether that be family, friends, associates, with a specific request in mind. I'd like you to vet this girl. The same way you would have a trial, and we in the UK, we've been having of late a trial of a nurse, and there's a jury. The jury listens, they go away, and they come together and say, this is our consensus on the case. The judge gives a verdict. When it comes to relationships, men, you should be doing the same thing with the women you date. Women, you should be doing the same thing with the men you date. Put them on trial. Let the juries or the jury critique. Listen. Let there be someone who is in your corner acting as the questioner, someone who is questioning what is being said. Dig in a little bit deeper. Think about the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard court case. It was televised. I don't think I've ever in my entire life been interested in a court case as the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case. I think primarily because it was televised and it was grand, but it was fascinating to see the brilliance of the teams and how they were asking questions, sometimes 4, 5, 6 level deep. 1 level deep, someone can lie. 2 levels deep, someone can hide the truth, lie, cheat. But when you get to 4, 5 levels deep, sometimes the lies come back to haunt you. So as a woman, put the man you have an interest in. Understand. Let him be on trial. And let there be tough questions from people who love and care about you. And let there be a jury who collects all the information and tell you what they think. Now, eventually, you get to make a choice. All the data comes back to you. And they might say, we like him for the following reasons. We don't like him for the following reasons. This is what we observed. Be aware of this. This is what we heard. Pay attention to this. The point is to give you an independent, non-partisan, ideally, non-biased, ideally, perspective of what they have experienced of the person who you consider to be a potential for your helpmeet or your significant other. Men make a mistake in not doing this. So for example, I'll use myself as a good reference, and I'll cover and not speak very directly, so I don't evoke any concerns with people who might think I'm speaking about them. I have been surprised at how many times I have made reference to the fact that if I were to look around my social circle, amongst the men in that circle, I have been surprised at how few of them have gone through this process, including people who I consider to be very, very smart and wise. This just is an indication that we all fall short of the whole process. Over time, I have seen relationships begin, blossom, and what I've been surprised the most about, and this does not make me particularly gifted, and does not make me particularly suited for that position, and what I've been surprised about is how, on the first meet of the person, I formed a perspective or an opinion. And as the relationship progressed, I have looked and used every opportunity to change, based on new information, what I think about the person on what you might say as though you would be watching a live game. So rather than hold on to what you formulated initially, you go back to the experiment and you change what the data is. And I have been surprised at how there's been some consistency in what I saw originally to what I finally witnessed. Obviously, the original interaction was not from a biased perspective, it was in good faith. And I tend to find that this is the case. And there is obviously in first meets, some people are shy, some people are awkward, some people are tentative, non-expressive, they don't feel welcome. But people tend to tell you who they are very quickly. The problem is we don't believe them. And sometimes we don't get the opportunity to believe them because we do not allow them the opportunity to show themselves to us. When you're emotionally involved with someone, it's possible for you to be disconnected from a non-biased perspective. So it's possible for you to be biased because you're emotionally and sexually involved with the person. Anybody else who is a third party can be objective within reason. It doesn't mean their perspectives are correct, but the process of the social dance is what you're looking to get, is what I call the law of large numbers in your favor. You're trying to get many experiences, and you're trying to put in what we call like a scatter plot diagram, and you're looking for the best fit line. You don't want to take that best fit line and compare it to what your conclusions were. For example, you're dating a man and 10 people have met him, not within the same setting, but independently, and all 10 of them have said to you, we do not approve of this. We think there is an issue, and here are our reasons. If their reasons are not biased and genuinely authentic, rather than speculative and filled with prejudices and certain preferences, if you compared all of their perspectives to yours on a balance of probability, if the interaction was in good faith, without any preconceived positions, what you should find is a skewness in the distribution, leaning towards the group rather than yours. It then gives you cause to pause and ask yourself a simple question: what am I not seeing? Think about if you're driving a car. You have the windscreen, you have the side mirrors, you have the rear view mirrors. You cannot drive using the side view mirrors alone, and you cannot drive using the rear view mirrors alone. You sometimes have blind spots. You're looking forward, but you also have to keep an idea of what's coming behind you. So if you're looking to overtake, you look to the side view mirrors, but you do not just move. You check out your blind spots. People in your life who love you act as blind spot observers on your behalf. Another example, if you're a picture in a frame, you can't see the picture itself because you are in the frame. You need an independent person to stand back and say, interesting, this is what I see. Now, where the person stands determines what they see. And also the perspective through which they look determines what they see. A beautiful piece of art comes with different faces based on the perspective through which the observer looks. But what you're looking for are the observations that have been made, and you want them in words so you can compare what you have experienced with what other people have experienced. Now let me move back or move forward into what I think perhaps might be a useful way of understanding this. Some time ago, I was with a loved one, my beloved, and we were talking, and a reference was made to someone who someone was dating or in a relationship with. And the question asked was a simple one: do you love him? The person being asked was a female, and the person who was absent was a male. Do you love him? And the answer was given. Now, afterwards, I said to my beloved, that was the wrong question. That was the wrong question. You do not ask a woman, does she love the man? If you're vetting from a man's perspective, and the way men will vet, recognizing that love is fleeting, it comes and it goes. And the way women define love is based on how they feel at that point in time. Feelings change. And feelings are not self-sustaining. Love does not get the job done. Never has, never will. I said the right question for a woman towards a male suitor or significant other is not, do you love him? There are 4 words. Do you admire him? Do you respect him? Do you honor him? And most importantly, or lastly, not most importantly, because honor is the most important, do you esteem him? I bring it full circle to the topic, the social dance. I've given you 4 words: admire, respect, honor, esteem. If a man has all of those from a woman, he will always have the commitment of the woman. If a man has the love of a woman, he can lose the love of the woman. So admiration is something most men do not consider, but they should, because admiration has to do with a lot more, has much to do with things within a social setting You might be successful as a lone ranger, but if no one knows of your success, and if you're not esteemed by the group, if you're not admired by the group, if you're not praised by the group, then people do not really know your talents, your skills, your abilities, and what makes you different. This brings me back to the core concept of honor. Admiration is birthed as part of a social integration process by virtue of the things you accomplish, or by virtue of the way you behave, or by virtue of your interactions with other people. So you get admiration by virtue of being part of a group and distinguishing yourself from the group. I saw a definition, let me read it out for you. I don't know how accurate this is, but it says admiration is a social emotion, not just individual, social, felt by observing people of competence, talent, skill, or skill exceeding certain standards. Let me say that again. Admiration is a social emotion felt by observing people of competence, talent, or skill exceeding certain standards. Admiration facilitates social learning in groups. So what you see here is number one, competence, talent, skill, and a standard. You've exceeded a standard. So the first question a man should always focus on is not, does she love me? We don't, and I know women struggle to understand this saying, and I've said it to many of my female friends, we don't understand love as men the same way women understand the word love. When a woman says to a man, I love you, it doesn't have the same effect as when a man says it to a woman. Men are supposed to love their wives. Wives are supposed to honor their husbands. Now, I started with admiration, competence, talent, ability, exceeding certain standards. It's a social thing. So a woman cannot admire you if she hasn't actually experienced you around people either who are better than you or lower than you. So what I often ask people I like and I love to do when they start dating someone is to ensure they bring them around the social group so that the woman can see how that person behaves, his temperament, his actions in the group. She would never admire you based on what she's heard from your lips, based on your accomplishments. As a matter of fact, then it becomes boastful, which is partly why most men, when they talk about what they have in dates or during dates, is seen as a turn up for most women. The men don't understand why. The reason is simple. The esteem, the admiration should come from the group first. Rather, the admiration should come from the group first. And then by virtue of the group's admiration of you, she sees through their eyes, at what makes you different. Respect is earned. A woman respects you by virtue of what you earn. In other words, you earn her respect. But in the interim, a woman respects you by virtue of the fact that other people respect you. Other people respect you only if they admire you. Respect is not forced or demanded. The whole idea that people should respect you because you are a man or a woman is foolish. It's earned. Respect is produced as a consequence of admiration. So as you guys start to spend time together, and as she starts to see your character and your manners and behaviors and your temperaments and your purpose and your vision and your leadership, respect will be developed directly between you and her. Prior to that process, or alongside that process, respect will be created and generated by virtue of how other people perceive and admire you. Number 3, honor. The definition of honor in the dictionary, I've never seen one that I agree with. Honor has to do with uniqueness. It has to do with recognizing what makes a person distinctively different, makes them unique. And honor is both an attitude and an action. The action is actually that you actually gift back to that person through your behavior, manners, sacrifice, or your reaction, something that demonstrates that you recognize what makes them different. Honor is understanding, first recognizing, understanding, and gifting someone through your attitude or actions a validation that you cherish what makes them unique. When you start dating a woman initially, she cannot honor you based on how you look. It has more to do with your core person, your integrity, your character, something in that nature. It's not something external. That's your sexual marketplace value. What I'm referring to is your manhood value and your character value. It's also not based on what you've done in terms of earnings or potential or wealth. It has nothing to do with that. A woman has to understand what makes you unique and different, which is why most men do not know how to vet women when they say, I really like him, because the question should follow is why. Oh, he's very attractive, but why? There's so many attractive men in the world. Oh, he's very kind, but what specifically about his kindness? Oh, he has a lot of integrity, but what does that really mean as a direct reference to him as an individual? Because otherwise, if you bring men who have integrity, there should be nothing different between you and them. But if you're honored, she'll be able to identify what makes you unique and what makes you different. And finally, esteem. If a woman understands what makes you unique, then she would esteem you. Now, self-esteem comes from self, hence the word self-esteem. But remember, men show up where they're admired, loved, and praised. I consider self-esteem to be synonymous with praise with regards to keeping a man's presence in that garden. A woman cannot esteem a man she doesn't honor, because esteem simply refers to, I recognize what makes you different, and therefore I give you praise, which is I remind you of what makes you unique. If you want to get a man's attention, you don't use words such as love. As I've said before to many women, you should simply say, I'm proud of you. Because to be proud of someone simply indicates that you've recognized something that you admire, something you respect, you honor him, and therefore you esteem him. Praise goes with esteem. So, and here is perhaps as I bring this together. A woman who is dating a man for whom she has seen him around the social context, doing the social dance, interacting with people of different stripes and colors and ages and backgrounds, if she doesn't find any admiration in the eyes of the other men towards the man in question, if she finds no respect in the eyes of the other men towards the man she's with, if she finds no honor in the eyes of the other men towards the man she's with, and if she finds no esteem over time in the eyes of the community or the group towards the man she's with, that should be a concern. Serious concern, despite how much you love him. My recommendation would be walk away. Great person, not the right one for you. Because the value of the man is determined usually by the group, not by himself. And certainly not by you, the woman. Now let me spin what I've shared so far so you can understand how this helps men. Men, stop asking for love. And even stop asking, does she admire you? Stop asking for her respect. Stop asking for her honor. And definitely don't ask to be esteemed. These things come instinctively to the right woman. And if the woman sees it in the right man. If it is absent, great woman, lovely woman, wrong woman for you, run. It takes time for all of this to unravel. And I have seen it in several relationships, even to the extent that you have men demanding to be respected. Now, there's a reason partly, and perhaps this is not a session for that conversation, there is a reason why sometimes women would never admire, respect, honor, or esteem her partner. That has to do with where you meet each other. Perhaps a conversation I might could cover in the next session. But let me give you a good example. A woman who's 23 is at the peak of her sexual marketplace value, and she has more of what men want: beauty, youth, chastity, decorum, purity, and all of that. A man who is 23, same age as she is, has potential, but he's achieved nothing. In the eyes of all the men and the group, he won't be admired because he's done nothing. He won't be respected because he has done nothing, probably still lives with his father. In terms of honor, he hasn't had the opportunity to develop and understand his purpose. So he doesn't have any honor in the sight of other men. He is no different from most 23-year-old boys or young men. And with regards to esteem, it will certainly be absent. So on a balance of power basis, the woman has a lot more value. She brings more of her value than what he brings. If they get together and they form a union, she will love him. She will never admire, respect, honor, or esteem him. As he grows and gets to 30, 35, he then converts his potential to actual result. Most other cases, in most times, what you should see is the woman growing with her man and growing into admiration and respect and honor and esteem. The problem is, if you live in the West, and this is something to share to men to be very careful, the avatar she has of you is frozen in time based on where she met you. This is partly why I also suggest to men to wait to 35, so you've achieved and accomplished something. At least you have a masculine frame, you know who you are as a man and you failed. So that you have a character value that is high enough, a manhood value that is high enough, and an economic intrinsic value that is high enough. That is your currency. She can therefore, in the presence of other men, see what makes you different from other men who are out there, who could be suitable candidates for her love. I have seen couples divorce because at the start of the relationship, the woman had all the leverage. As he approached 35 and over, and he was doing really well, he was now demanding from her what she should have been given naturally. But at the point she met him, she actually mothered him into masculinity. She will never admire you, respect you, honor you, or esteem you. Now, let me bring today's session to a close because I think I wouldn't want to go too far. I will say a few words. Start early. And I might do a follow-up session about this because I think it's so important. Start early and allow other people to vet the people who you have in your life or the person who you have in your life and you're taken seriously. Don't do it alone. Tiger Woods was a great golfer, but he had people stand back and watch him swing and correct him. The reason being, despite being a great golfer, he couldn't see himself swing without reference to, video tapes. So he had people who would tell him, well, we noticed you did this when you did the last swing. Can you move this slightly that way? And can you stand that way? And by correcting his posture and his swing, he achieved better results. If you do not have great people around you to vet, then outsource that task to people who are independent from you, such as coaches and mentors and people who you can pay who are disconnected from you. But get it done. Allow people to be part of that process because the consequence of getting it wrong sometimes is too high. Now, I'm going to say something that I think you should keep in mind. When you're vetting people or testing people, and I'm speaking in this regard to women who are looking to vet men, the people who are vetting on your behalf and who care about you are not testing him just to see whether he's lovely and kind, because most people, and I'm going to say this, most people vet and test for things that are so trivial, I wouldn't even consider that if I was vetting a dog. It's about feelings. And women tend to take men to their female friends and they listen to what is said based on their egos and based on their lived experiences. So they're listening to hear the right things. Firstly is, how does he look? If you get a big tick, they tend to disregard the important questions. Then it's, how does he feel around the presence of other girls? If he's saying the right things, it's another big tick. Then the next question is, okay, does he say, and is he playful? Is he entertaining? These are all trivial, idiotic ways of vetting men. You are testing a man for two things. Integrity, meaning does he stay the same? And making sure he's not a chameleon, someone who changes depending on where he finds himself. And the second thing you're testing for is character, which is connected to integrity. You want to see that he is of sound character. A, B, C, D, we call these characters because they have integrity, they do not change. 1, 2, 3, 4, we call them characters because they do not change, they have integrity, they are one. What you're looking for is a man who is one. Put aside his ability to earn. You're looking for a solid rock upon which you can build a family or a union. Which is why when I did the session, A Guide to a Man's Value, and I went through all the values, there were two that were very important. A man's character value, CV, and a man's manhood value, MV. If you get those right, by virtue of the group you have and the wisdom of the group which you allow yourself to embrace, you will find that the process of choosing a man is made easier by having more people help in that process than trying to do it on your own. Now, I hope today's session has been useful.